What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Bold Business. I'm your host, Philip Michael, and let's get right to this week's trends. And the biggest trend, perhaps, is that Americans are finally getting their third stimulus check. Some people might get their $1,400 by this weekend already. Now, just a reminder, to get one of these, you have to make $75,000 or less if you're single. And if you're married, combined, you have to make $150,000 or less. Also, you get a check for each kid. Now, the stimulus is much needed relief for many Americans, but some people are worried about lasting effects like inflation. I grew up in a Scandinavian country. I grew up in Denmark. And one of the things that we were taught in economics, the way they said it is, when you print more money, it's like peeing your pants to stay warm. You'll feel warm and you're cold, but then it wears off and now you're left with soiled pants, okay? That was one of the metaphors they used to describe inflation. The thing is this, according to some statistics, I don't know how accurate this is, but I do believe it, 1 out of every $5 in circulation were printed last year. You know what that means? Whenever there's more of something out there, the less value it has. Now think about this. Because of the pandemic, you already had people, remember when the small businesses were closing and then they opened them up, they had to pay rent, so they had to increase the prices just to try to keep up. Now, do you think those prices will come back down? No. Then with more money coming into the economy, just go back and look. I went to McDonald's a few months ago. This must have been in January. And I used to buy a cup of coffee for $1 at McDonald's. That thing is now $1.69. And they may even add tax on top of that. That's inflation. So one of the things that's so important that when you do have this money, you find a way to invest, because when you invest, you have to outpace the rate of inflation, because if not, the money you have now will not have the same buying power in a few years. And that's a problem. So that's one of these things to look out for. Obviously, we need to find a way to get the economy going again. But just be mindful, the more money gets pumped into the economy, the less value it has. And inflation is real. So that's all I have to say about that. Now, in other news, NFTs, you want to talk about something with gains and growth and hype and excitement. NFTs are hot. If you don't know what NFTs are, it's basically crypto, but instead of having currency or money behind it, it carries art, music, stuff like that. Well, the digital artist Beeple just sold the highest selling NFT ever. Shout out to Beeple, I suppose. It's a digital collage called Every Day's The First 5,000 Days. And it sold for almost $70 million. It's apparently the third most expensive work sold by a living artist at an auction ever. Now, NFTs have opened up a whole new world for artists. Just last week, the band Kings of Leon became the first music artist to sell a full album as NFTs. And what could this mean for crypto and artists in the future? Well, it's always hard to say. Bitcoin has been hot for a few years. It's been around for around 10? And we still really don't know. Even the biggest Bitcoin expert, he or she doesn't really know where it's going to go, because it hasn't been adopted as a whole and it's still forming. Until it's forming, we don't have a mature product or trend, and then we can't really extrapolate any type of future trends. We don't know. And the same thing with NFTs. What I do find appealing and intriguing about it is the fact that you have something like a master recording, as you have in music. If you own a record label, you have the master recording, then you duplicate that and sell it off as CDs, or at least you used to. And then you collect the rights because you own the master recording. NFTs is sort of similar to that. And it ties that into the whole phenomenon of selling art. But you don't have to think about it as how they mention Bitcoin as a digital form of gold, a retail hedge against inflation, right? This here is something similar to, how you have rich people that got paintings and they sell them at a profit, and no one really seems to understand why. At least I don't. Similar thing. You don't have to have the actual physical inventory of gold or painting, and you can do it like this. So it's an interesting trend. Where does it go? We don't know. I just know it's hot, and there's a lot of talk about it, so this is definitely a trend to look out for. Now, to trend number 3. Goldman Sachs is spending $10 billion on black women over the next decade. It's called the 1 Million Black Women Initiative, and they want to impact 1 million black women by 2030 in areas like healthcare, job creation, and education. Now, this is just one in the latest. This is the latest in a string of initiatives by big corporations that's long overdue to try to get some, how can I put it? There are wealth gaps that exist in the country, whether it's the gender wealth gap, whether it's the racial wealth gap, as they call it. There's a lot of wealth disparity in North America as we have right now, particularly the United States. And this is just amazing that they're doing this. This is more important than ever. Number one, with the pandemic. Number two, with all the stuff that's happened in the past few years, and now more awareness around, of course, women's rights for people of color and so on and so forth. So it's an amazing initiative. I just hope they find a way to do it correctly and do it right and find the right allies to make sure it gets done so it helps and elevates everybody. And of course, as they say, a rising tide lifts all boats. So shout out to them. I hope it works.